All right, let's dive right in. What happens when a personal struggle starts affecting millions of people? You know, when does a private misfortune become a huge public issue? Today, we're going to explore some of the major social problems facing India, and we're using Chapter 6 of the Standard 12 Sociology textbook as our guide to really understand these challenges from the ground up.
So first things first, we need to get a really crucial distinction clear in our heads. Over on the left, you see an individual problem. I am unemployed. That's a personal hardship, for sure, and the cause might be totally specific to that one person. But look at the right. That's a social problem, widespread unemployment. See, this isn't just about one person's bad luck or skill set anymore. It's a condition affecting a massive number of people. It points to bigger issues within the very structure of society. And that's the leap we're making today, from the personal to the societal.
To get a bit more formal about it, sociologists Horton and Leslie give us a definition with 3 key ingredients. First, it's a condition that affects a significant number of people. It's not just a handful. Second, it's seen as undesirable. We as a society agree this is not good. And third, and honestly, this is the most hopeful part, there's a belief that something can be done about it. Not by one person, but through all of us working together. It's basically a call to action. Okay, so with that framework in mind, let's start looking at the specifics. We're going to break down some of the most pressing social problems in India right now, one by one. Let's start with the problems of aging. As people live longer, which is great, our elderly population grows. But that comes with its own unique set of challenges. And it's like a domino effect. It often starts with physical and mental health concerns, which then get compounded by the really deep pain of loneliness and isolation. And tragically, that vulnerability can sometimes lead to abuse and neglect, all while this constant worry of economic insecurity is hanging over their heads, especially if there's no pension. Wow, this slide really puts the unemployment crisis into stark perspective. Just look at these numbers. For a little over 4,400 available government jobs, there were almost 1.5 million applicants. Let that sink in for a second. This isn't just a skills gap. This is a massive, gaping chasm between what people want and what's actually available. And the consequence of that giant gap? It's exactly what you see here. Think about it. All those applicants from the last slide represent this huge reservoir of human potential, of talent and energy. When a society can't provide meaningful work for them, that potential just goes to waste. It stops being an asset and starts becoming a burden on the economy. We'll circle back to that idea later.
Next, we have to talk about a deeply tragic and complex issue, farmer suicides. This is never, ever caused by just one thing. It's a devastating combination of pressures all piling on at once. You've got the crushing weight of debt, often from private moneylenders with crazy interest rates. You've got the total unpredictability of the environment, droughts one year, floods the next. Then you have these invisible forces of globalization messing with crop prices, and even deep-rooted social pressures like the dowry system that can push a farmer into crippling debt. This image is it's incredibly powerful, isn't it? It shows a farmer literally being crushed by the weight of money. And that's the crucial point here. This isn't just about finances. As the caption says, it's a psychological burden. It's a legacy of debt and despair that tragically gets passed down from one generation to the next. Now for a problem that so often stays hidden behind closed doors: domestic violence. And the definition here is really clear. It's not just about physical harm. It's psychological, it's emotional, it's verbal abuse. And the real reason it persists, the reason it's so hard to tackle, is written right there. It's often dismissed as a personal or family matter. That attitude just normalizes the behavior and completely silences the victims. Okay, let's talk about addiction. We'll start with what most of us probably think of first when we hear that word: substance addiction. This is a physical, biological dependence. Your body itself starts to crave chemicals like alcohol, tobacco, or other drugs, which makes it incredibly, incredibly difficult to quit. But addiction in the 21st century has evolved. Today, we're also facing addictions that aren't based on a chemical hook, but a psychological one. I'm talking about a deep dependence on the internet and our phones. And this isn't just a kids these days problem, not at all. It cuts across every single age group, and it creates a whole new set of challenges for our mental well-being. So, we've defined the problems, but what do they actually do? What's the real-world, human cost of all these issues for individuals, for families, and for society as a whole? Let's take a look. This quote, wow, it just cuts right to the heart of the generational damage caused by farmer suicides. The immediate tragedy of a death is devastating enough,
but it's followed by a lifetime of consequences for the kids left behind. They carry these deep psychological scars, and, as the text says, they're often forced to drop out of school, and that just traps the family in a repeating cycle of poverty and lost opportunity.
The consequences of domestic violence also create these awful ripple effects, touching far more than just the immediate victim. Of course, it starts with severe psychological and emotional trauma. That kind of trauma naturally makes it almost impossible for a person to reach their full potential. This stress can even show up as physical health problems. But here's the really crucial part. When children witness this violence, it normalizes it for them, which can perpetuate a destructive cycle into the next generation.
And what about widespread unemployment? Well, economically, it's a massive drain. You're turning potential contributors into dependents. But beyond the money, it has a profound, crushing effect on mental health. It leads to frustration, depression, and a deep sense of hopelessness. And that despair, when combined with a total lack of opportunity, can unfortunately push some people towards crime. Ultimately, it just holds back the entire nation's development.
I know this can all feel pretty overwhelming, but remember that hopeful part of our definition from the beginning? A social problem is something we believe we can actually fix through collective action. So let's shift gears and look at how society is trying to respond and forge some pathways to real solutions. To really support the elderly, it has to be a team effort. The government does its part with policies, then you have civil society stepping up through amazing NGOs like Help Age India. But the real foundation, the core of it all, has to be the family, creating an atmosphere of support, respect, and genuinely valuing the wisdom of our elders. No single group can solve this alone.
For farmers, the solutions are really practical and targeted at the root of the problem. Providing crop insurance gives them a financial safety net. Cutting out the middlemen by enabling direct sales means they get a fair price. Better water management helps fight back against environmental uncertainty. And creating farmer-friendly loan systems can finally break that vicious cycle of debt.
The approach to tackling domestic violence is this really powerful three-step process. First, awareness. We have to drag this problem out of the private sphere and into the public light where everyone can see it. Second, empowerment. We need to give victims the tools and the support to help themselves. And third, the law. Using legislation like the Domestic Violence Act as both a shield to protect victims and a sword for justice. And finally, tackling addiction also requires a whole community to get involved. It all starts with education and awareness. It absolutely requires professional help from counselors. It leans on the incredible power of peer support from organizations like AA. And it involves helping people redirect their energy toward positive activities, essentially rebuilding a life beyond their addiction.
So after looking at the problems and the potential solutions, we get to what might be the most important part of this whole conversation, our role in all of this.
So here it is. This is the crucial takeaway. Whether we're talking about unemployment or addiction or violence, these are not simply the failures of individuals. They are reflections of complex social conditions, and they can't be solved by individual willpower alone. They demand a collective response from all of us, one that's built on awareness of the problem, empathy for those who are struggling, and a real commitment to take action.
And that leaves us with a final question to really think about. We've looked at the problems of today, but society is always changing. What new challenges are going to pop up tomorrow? And maybe more importantly, how can each of us, now that we understand this a little better, be an active part of the solution?